An enormous welcome, everybody. I'm Helen. I'm the director of Live Canon. It's absolutely lovely to welcome you to this evening's event. From wherever you're joining us from, it's really lovely to see all the locations in the chat of where everybody is around the world. That is one of the wonderful things about an online launch, is that we can gather globally to celebrate a brand new book. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm the director of Live Canon. Live Canon is a hybrid of a poetry publishers and a theatre production company. We are celebrating our 15th birthday this year, and this book is our 70th poetry publication, which is incredibly exciting. I had to go on the ISBN register earlier today to check exactly how many books we had published, and this is number 70, which is incredibly exciting. Thank you so much for being here to celebrate with us tonight. An incredibly exciting publication. It's come about at very short notice. I think from decision to book in hand has been about 6 weeks, and we'll talk a little bit more about why that has happened later on in the event. But a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. What we're going to do over the course of the next hour is that I'm going to invite Glyn to read from this book. We're going to have a bit of a chat about it. He's going to read some more. We've got a little film to share with you. We're going to chat some more. He's going to read some more. So over the course of the next hour, there'll be plenty of poems, but also some conversation about how this book came to be and why it is, as I see it, completely unique as a publication. What I'll do is I've got everybody muted in the Zoom room at the moment, and occasionally I'll ask everyone to unmute at moments where we need thunderous, crackling, zoomy applause or raising of glasses and toasting, but generally we'll keep you muted, which means poor Glyn will be reading into that sort of strange zoomy silence, but we'll all grin and beam back at him and try and make all the support flood from wherever we are around the world into the strange Zoom-iverse. And if you need me at any point for anything technical or anything practical, if you just shoot me a direct message in the Zoom, I'm keeping an eye on them and hopefully I can help you. If at any point you can't hear or anything else, just start waving your arms frantically and I'll work out that I need to do something about it. So we are here tonight to celebrate the publication of this very handsome volume. It's a stunning book. It's a beautiful object as well, for which we have to give massive thanks to Steve at Stroma, printers that we've worked with for a long time. And despite the lockdown and despite the rising costs of paper and everything else, Stroma are still going strong and keeping up their partnership with us. And despite the ridiculous turnaround I asked them for with this beautiful book, they've done a completely extraordinary job. I'm going to turn it around for you just in case you want to see the other side there. And some people are holding them up in the Zoom room, which is even better. That is fantastic to see. Fantastic, brilliant, thank you. People waving their book in the air. I absolutely love it. Some of you might know some of the poems from this book because Live Canon's relationship with these poems actually started last autumn when Glyn showed me some of the work in this book, the work in progress. At the time, the work in progress was called Corpse Lights, and we gathered people together at the Bedford in South London for a sharing and a listening to some of the texts. And Glyn read on that occasion with 4 actors from the Live Canon ensemble, Joey, Sophie, Alex and Jim. And between the 5 of them, they gave us a very first glimpse of this tantalizing work in progress. We then realized that this work was really, really urgent. For any of you that have read anything from the book or listened to any of it through that performance, you'll know that this book speaks to this moment politically and very much to this government and to this administration. As many of you will know, if you work in publishing or in poetry, books sometimes take several years to get from the stage of a manuscript to bookshelf, but that felt completely unacceptable for this book, that it needed to hit this particular moment of spring 2023. And so an incredible team of people have worked really, really hard to turn this book around as quickly as possible and get it to you, the readers, and none more so than Glyn. And I am delighted to welcome him tonight to this event. And I'm going to ask him to kick us off by reading a poem.
Last. That's my last murder on the murder wall. Not mine, I stress, except in that it's all mine. The case was mine, though I have since moved on. It's my display, the sheets and pins, the local cuttings, strings from clue to clue, spaces on my wall for all these new leads and hunches, for they come by night. They do. I blink awake by the bedside light, then I battle to assemble that last dream. Soon I'm smiling in the kettle steam, a wise connection made in the small hours. No, not the least decline in the old powers, I'll assure my former colleagues. It's the case we never should have closed. Her amber face gleams in the dead centre of my wall, attractive, at a do, so shy, quite tall, holding a drink she hasn't touched yet. Cheers, I softly say, and lift my mug. It's years since all of this. Follow the dark green twine, east of her picture, to the railway line, where someone saw her walk. Black marker pens point to a capture from a dirty lens, down by the paper's edge. Her friend, his dog. Follow the red thread west to a house in fog. Why did she go where she went? Why did she do the things she did? I know you, I know you, I want to say, but that way madness lies. Take it from me. I look in the bluebell eyes. One day her prince will come. Does the station call? Do they hell? Dare say their murder wall lies flat in some wide oaken drawer these days. I see it sliding out of view. Her face is pale, alarmed. My case is closed, but why? You never solved it. Angel, so say I, as I loop a silver string around a tack and add a question mark. Did she go back? Don't go back, I whisper, and my pen rings a pencil sketch I made back then, as best I could, but not a pretty sight. I stir my oatmeal as the early light outlines the window. In one dream we meet. I give her warnings, then I walk the street patrolling for the lady. In one dream, I'm leaping through the station to my team to stop the drawer from sliding out of view forever, just in time. I tell them who, and how, and why, and no one moves at all. My lady rises from my murder wall, and then I wake. I didn't take this case, or any case, or worked in the police, or knew the lady, or the pictures here. Don't wish I'd done it, let me make that clear. But in some dreams I'm known of, have a name that comes up in the briefings, in the frame, person of interest sort of, and my files lie underground on shelves that go for miles.
Thank you so much, Glyn. And you can see, yes, we're having visual applause on Zoom. I'm enjoying it. I can see everybody clapping. Thank you so much. I'm going to start by just chatting to Glyn a little bit about this collection and how it came about. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you might know just from the title of that poem, it's inspired by My Last Duchess, the Browning poem, but it's flipped around the other way. Whereas in the Browning poem, we start to suspect during the poem that he might have been involved in the murder of his missus. In this poem, we start with that suspicion, and it unwinds as we come through the poem. So it's the other way around. As Caroline Bird has said about this book, I'm going to quote her off the back of the thing, Maxwell performs a magic trick, a homage to famous poems that make us simultaneously remember and forget the source. It's a tome dipped in a dream, a renegade covers album, and completely his own. What we've got here is a book of poems that take the form of other poems that are well known canonically in English poetry, and each of those poems is then repurposed to tell a new story or a story of the now. So Glyn, how did that come about, and how did you start working on this?
It's funny, I was just thinking about how, talking about how topical it is, you know. That's the poem that's kind of the least topical in the whole thing. But I thought it would be a nice place to start. That nice isn't really the word. It was deep in lockdown, and I was kind of troubled by the news. You know, I've been troubled by the news like probably anyone on this call has been for several years. I'd been wanting to write politically. I've been wanting to write some quite directly political stuff. And as it happens, I'd written this sort of comedy fiction called Drinks with Dead Poets, which I wrote like 7 years ago. And I wanted, it was called The Autumn Term, Drinks with Dead Poets, The Autumn Term. And I wanted to do a sequel called something, 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 The Spring Term. And I couldn't think what to call it. And I actually wrote the whole thing, but it was completely infected by fury at the things that had happened to England since 2016, really. I mean, it's not complicated what I'm talking about. I couldn't keep it out of the writing. And I was supposed to be writing a book about plays. The first one was about poetry. This was going to be about plays, theatre. And theatre just couldn't get on stage. You know, it was just raging about England in some sort of obvious metaphorical way. And I think all of that impulse, I shelved it, and I'll never publish that, or no one else will, the way things are going. So I think a lot of that anger came out in this, even more directly. But what actually triggered it was the one that's based on The Lady of Shalott, which was based on a murder, the murder of a woman in Kenya by a British soldier, which has been admitted but never investigated. And she was found 10 weeks after the murder, which he'd admitted to, and he showed his other fellow soldiers the body. This has all been investigated. It's all in the paper under sort of Soldier X and Soldier Y, but it's never been investigated, and it's still the same. If you look up her name, Agnes Wanjiru, it's still not been investigated. She lay in a septic tank for 10 weeks. And the soldiers involved were all sent home after 6 days, and no one reported it. So she was found after 10 weeks, although they all saw it six that night. And then, yeah. So sorry, I'm ranting. But I just thought The Lady of Shalott. I just thought a woman, an innocent woman immersed in water because of the actions of a British soldier. So it's the same, actually, Lancelot and so on. I call him Lancelot in the poem. That started it, and it wrote itself it came with such force, that poem. I wrote it virtually exactly in the same form, which is a really tight form, and the same length and with a lot of the same words. So that was the beginning of it. I just thought, that was easy, not as in easy, but that came fast, that came with force. And I thought, what else could I do? And then the next one was the Wreck of the Deutschland, which I did about the migrant sinking, which had happened a year earlier. The really big one. And then I just thought, well, maybe this is a book. I'll just bring them out of the grave. The poems that have never gone away, the poems that are really, really popular with everybody, and very popular with people who don't like poetry. So you possibly know the kind of poems I'm talking about, but I said I'm going to do all of those. I'm going to tilt them, or I'm going to turn them up around 180 degrees, like I did with some of Kipling. But let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with really memorable forms, and let's say something memorable. Let's see if that works. So that was the idea. So I have 12 poems that all have a different, strange relationship with some famous canonical work. Yeah.
What's so fascinating about that is some of the canonical works that you've taken come from that real period of, dare I say it, empire, patriarchy. They are some of the most bombastic poems in the English language. And by taking them as the form in which to write about, particularly the current administration, it makes me smile that, you've probably taken the favorite poems of the Johnson administration and then turn them around back at them with incredible skill, because actually, I'm as you know, a complete meter geek, but actually it's really exciting to see somebody working within an existing meter. It's very like the work you've done, in opera and in terms of translating work, but actually working within an existing meter and a form, but making it completely your own. So I'm going to ask if next I'd like to ask if you would read the two Kipling poems from the book, because actually both of these are about incredibly important political moments of the last the last 2 years, and wrapped up in the form of and the meter of Kipling, and I'd love it if you'd share both of those with us now.
Absolutely. Just one other thing on the last Duchess, or last as I called it, is I suppose I also wanted to read it first because it's as much as it's about the recent governance, it's also or about England, which is explicitly about. It's also about men, right? It's about English men, and I thought the character I've drawn in the monologue I just read was a psychological portrait of a man and his. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That all men ever. Yeah, there you go. Oh, I don't know. You make up your own mind. So look, I thought, because I'm essentially quite modest and humble, I'd call this poem "If." Kipling's "If" is in italics with a dash. Not a lot of people know that, but mine is just "If," it would be clear quite quickly that it's about Grenfell Tower. I did a lot of research on this for quite a short poem, but you can see the conclusion it comes to. I think I probably stand by that. It's no single person's fault, no single entity's fault. But I thought it was time to strike some lights off that endless, eternal poem of Kipling's, and there's a description of where it comes from in the book, which it's just some local quarrel in those days. If you would make an ugly thing look shiny, or make an aged thing look good as new, or engineer a saving, though it's tiny, to suit the corporation hiring you, if you would make it pretty from a distance, or come in under budget by the date, if you would hit your mark and meet resistance by never meeting it till it's too late, then you might turn your thoughts to aluminium or polyethylene or PIR, the cheaper stuff professional opinion knows will burn like fuel, but there you are. And once it burns, kill any who inhaled it, it being part composed of cyanide. Or if these compounds took a test and failed it, you might rename them slightly, let it slide. Or when the troublemakers make their trouble, prolong the work, or pine for luxuries like water sprinklers, hallways clear of rubble, lights that function, fripperies like these. You'll hear them out, but threaten legal action none can fight. And if one night in bed they all stay put, because of an instruction meant for buildings where a fire can't spread, you're not alone. In fact, you're one of many. Unnumbered are the ways to wink it through. Some are convenience, and most are money. Some what we did, most what we didn't do. Ours is not the world and all that's in it. Ours is how we live, and if we care. Ours is everyone's last passing minute. Now you can't say you didn't meet them there. The second one is based on Kipling's poem, The White Man's Burden. The White Man's Burden was written for Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee, the very end of the 19th century. And then it was rewritten slightly as an exhortation to the United States Senate to colonize what was then known as the Philippine Islands, as its first line is "Take up the white man's burden." There's 4 lines from that poem in this poem, and it's about the flight from Afghanistan, from Kabul airport, essentially, in the summer of 2021, and how it was accomplished. Burden. And in a room there's this one, alone at work all day. The embassy is roasting. His endless emails say, "Help us, sir," from judges, translators, cleaning staff. Back home his mates in Hampshire quote Kipling for a laugh. Soon it's a room for these ones, armed and in control, the drawers all battered open, and any hopeful soul who's penned an application to work with the UK should know it's being read now and run the fuck away. A dining room for these ones, in Somerset, in Crete, in the Dordogne, it's August, they're putting up their feet, They're staying on staycation. They're delegating calls in sandals by the plunge pool as a whole country falls. Will there be room for this one? Time slows. A tiny child is lifted over razor wire into the Western world. While far away on holiday, our leader leads the calls, denied but well attested, to save some animals. Will there be room for those ones? An Airbus leaves the ground. 200 seats are empty. Guess what's London bound? By all ye cry and whisper, by all ye leave and do, the silent sullen peoples shall weigh your gods and you. There was no room for this one, no room on earth at all, no room in heaven either. Time stops to watch him fall from help, from mercy, a spot on a blue sky. Pure is what his name meant. Sod your prayers, say I. In a room forever, these ones, with nowhere left to go, form half the population. Nothing you don't know. Boys, you did your damnedest, the way you always do, and it's almost always murder, and almost always you.
Thank you so much, Glyn. Let's all take a moment to unmute and applaud at this point. Thank you, everybody. Feel free to remute as I come back on and bring Glyn back onto the screen. It's such an extraordinary book, and when I first read it, obviously the onus became on Live Canon to try and get it to readers as quickly as possible. Joelle nails it. She says on the front of this book, Joelle Taylor, genius, a work of both tradition and sedition, of essential political inquiry, playful, erudite and passionate, a hymn to the state of the nation. And it got us talking really about how you publish a sort of state of the nation poetry book, because actually, as many of you know, it takes, a lot stuff can take a really long time to get from manuscript to into the world, but this feels urgent, slightly in the style of like a broadsheet or something that traditionally would have been brought straight out and sold on the street, and in that sense it's got that kind of almost like pamphlet feeling to it, despite how extraordinarily well wrought and well crafted some of the poems are. But it is actually timed to the moment, because Innes, Glyn, I hope you don't mind me saying, but you referenced the fact that of exactly how old you are at the writing of it. There's a reference to 60 years and I will have my say on England, fond and fooled and wrecked and sinking with 3 cheers in the dissolving light. So you've nailed your 60-year-old mast to the wind, sails to the mast there, and that of course places you as being directly in parallel with the Prime Minister that you write most about, Johnson. So we're going to come towards a poem called Memo at the moment, but tell us a bit about it, because it is a direct message, isn't it, from you to Boris Johnson?
Yeah, I suppose it's like kind of Pope letter to someone, right? I guess it works out like that. I wanted to look at the whole COVID response, and I did a lot of research on that as well, and I wanted to do it in that four-line Tennyson stanza from In Memoriam, I was making up a story that was sort of set in Liverpool around the Liverpool Atletico Madrid game that after Spain had shut down and England hadn't. So I thought so I was trying to make a story of that, and then on holiday, actually, one night after Italian wine, I was in Chianti, not just drinking, but in Chianti, which doesn't happen often, but there you go. I went to bed that night and I had this really strong idea. I couldn't get to sleep. I thought, people make fun of Boris Johnson for saying, when he was a child, saying he wanted to be world king. And it just occurred to me, when I was a child, I wanted to be world writer. And I actually, with exactly the same level of confidence and ambition. And I thought, so we're not so different. Okay, we met once or twice, probably through other people at university, but it wasn't my type, and I wasn't his. So but I thought, actually, how different. I'm not just going to sneer at this because I was like that as a young kid, and I've never really changed either. But I just do less damage, I suppose. But it is a book written out of rage, actually. Having done the research, the rage didn't lessen in any way. There was no understanding. There's very little ambiguity about how badly it was done, how many lives it cost. Not saying that's all his fault, but responsibility where if you stand up for it, you take it. So I thought, well, I'll start this in an imaginary place where he and I are looking back at the lives we were going to have being world king and world writer, in a sense of, oh my God, what just happened? So I begin and end there, and in the middle is really like an old style, Middle Ages kind of style chronicle of actual events. It's entirely accurate. It's chronologically accurate too. Everything that happened. Yeah, that's it.
It's extraordinary. And for anyone who hasn't got the book yet, basically what we've done with each poem is we've just put a little introduction to each poem, which just locates it for you. And what we're talking about, the kind of poem it relates to, and some of the research as well that have gone into the poems is cited in the book. So in that sense, it's I shouldn't say it, but for any of you who are teaching poetry out there, it's an amazing opportunity to contrast the original poems with Glyn's responses. And you mentioned rage there, Glyn, and I think that is it's a strong theme of the book, or a strong tone. And I think perhaps the extraordinary quality of the verse and the writing and the impeccable use of meter and line and sort of elevates it beyond the rant. I think in anybody else's hands, a book with this level of rage could be unreadable, in terms of, it would be a rant, but somehow you've managed to make a rant that is also sort of stunning in its own right and its own voice. I've got another of these brilliant quotes to read about the book. Glyn Maxwell locks himself up in the traditional forms of English verse and throws away the key, only to escape before our eyes in a white hot rage directed at the maleness, politicians, police, planners, which is laying waste to England. This is a dazzling, heroic and virtuoso endeavour from one of our finest poets. That's from the brilliant Carol Ann Duffy. And she's absolutely spot on, because the rage is blazing through the lines of poetry. But yet somehow it's measured by this attachment to metre, which I think is so extraordinary and unique, I suppose, in terms of anything else that's out at the moment. We're going to share the poem that Glyn was just talking about, Memo, but we're going to share it from the performance last autumn, where Glyn performed this on stage alongside Sophie Scott from Live Canon, who is doing an invaluable job within the poem. Do you want to say anything about that, Glyn, or shall I just let it unfold?
Yeah, I'd just say she's, apart from the bloke who plays Death in The Seventh Seal, Sophie's the only actor I know who can just move some cards around, stand up, move some cards around, sit down again and be Death. So she's one of my favourite actors. That's it.
Brilliant. Give me 1 second to get this right technically, and get this poem going. And thank you, of course, as I set it up, to the extraordinary folk at the Bedford in South London. Thank you to Becky, and thank you to Richard for the opportunity we had to share this in this way last autumn. Hopefully you can all see that there for me. Give me a big nod if you can. Thank you. And here we go.
This next poem uses the famous four-stress ABBA stanza from Alfred Tennyson's In Memoriam AHH. It doesn't use the length of that poem. Okay. It's a letter to an old mate of mine, but he's still with us. So it's not in memory of him. It's in memory of thousands of others. The name of the poem is Memo. Mate, let's start with how this form was built for dwelling on the death of one beloved. One last breath, one ended life, one life to mourn unendingly. Let's start with why it's fit for that. A walking beat, I am, alone on foot, and always soon the stop and sigh. First lines so bright and clear they sing, a shift in thought, avoid the rhyme, we're free of fate, In double time we're here, not free of anything. As I'm not free of you, and you're not free of this, I call you mate, your name for me, the only night we met. I'm guessing 84, I might be wrong, the Balliol Bar. You taking classics with my friend I'd come to visit. In my mind you're in black tie, don't think you were. Then you're the mayor, stuck on your wire with flags. Then in a crumpled suit on Downing Street, you look like shit. You're clapping. All I know for sure is in the Balliol bogs, the walls were inked with Latin banter. Whose or what, I've no idea. Let's raise the lid to little boys in halls. But hey, World King, you didn't know your mate that night was one of you, world writer. Call him, please. I knew where I was bound, and I still know, in spite of time and likelihood. Great man theory. How's that look these days, old man? And how's your book on Shakespeare? Anything you need, just ask me, I'm world writer. Mate, before I tell you how I think it's going, how it went, let's drink to mutual greatness while we wait for time to come. In our 5-star abandoned overlook hotel, where everything has gone so well, it's gone away. The land slopes far below. We can't remember how we got here quite. We're only sure we booked ahead, we're catered for. The afternoon was blazing. Now there's candles floating here and there, somebody lit. The air is cool. We'll watch the sunset strand the hill and wonder where on earth we are. Mate, I do know where you were that Chinese New Year, Downing Street, poking lions to stimulate a dance for all the cameras there. And where you weren't, I also know. A Cobra meeting yards away on News from China. Good to see that nation's in your thinking, though, that January. One Dr. Lee, with desperation in his eyes, sends out a selfie, soon he dies, and skiers are back from Lombardy, the worse for wear. The 31st, you're booming to the painted hall, you got it done, took back control. 4 more Cobra meetings missed, and mate, about the care homes. No transmission likely? February. You take a pregnant fiancée on holiday, 3 weeks to go till lockdown. As an expert says, we mustn't do things early. Mate, you're pumping hands and proud of it in hospitals. Your beaming face should cheer them up, your Beano mop. You shake hands on a morning show, the only grin in sight. Swing low to Twickenham, shake hands, play up, and England win by 3. Brave you, your papers say. The evidence from Asia has no relevance, and these 2 experts think so too, or stand there while you say they do. The races and the Anfield game. 3,000 fans fly in from Spain, where everything has shut. Mind you, it's better to have caught the bug than never to be sick at all, appears to be the rationale. Mourners never got that hug. Blank days break. An eerie graph appears behind your tousled head. Did you say what we think you said? Squash the sombrero. Pause for laugh. Pause to hold a baby shower at Chequers. Mate, I only ask. Operation, wait, last gasp. You turn and smirk. Cometh the hour, cometh my mate. And now this flu's declassified by law, it seems, and not high consequence, which means less PPEs required. That's news to nurses in their bin bags. So, protect the NHS, save lives, stay at home, 3 seers advise, from Friday next. Oh, Friday, no, Monday, keep the footsie safe. Monday, March the 23rd, the army builds a mega ward. No units, though, or nursing staff. Do wonder why so many went. We start to clap them anyhow and keep it up until somehow it's time to stop. Just when I can't abide your mug a moment more, mate, the virus tolls for you. I lie down, don't know what to do with this, old man. So pass a law, do something. While you gasp for air, spoiler alert, you make it through. I sigh my sad heart out for you, because I care. At least I care for tragic cases, which you are, mate. We know exactly who you thought you'd be one day, how you kept up your crap impression year on soul-dejecting year. They all thought him a dick for ages, true, until his moment. Right on cue, your moment came. Your hour, your call, your blitz, your Götterdämmerung came on a plane, came on a plate, your kind of wordplay. Get well, mate. Came with instructions. That's the thing. Points of light across the world had blazed their simple messages for months by now. Here's what it is and does, how it can be controlled. Here's what to do, what not to do. Data, numbers, black and white. Nurse Luis got his big call right. Whether the same is said of you, let's let your rags go toe-to-toe with truth until their race is run. Let's see who wins that marathon when all the loss is long ago. Loss is never long ago. We've lost a lot since you showed up, mate, but that's just me. I'll stop, take back control of what I know. Except I can't help wondering what you thought would turn out otherwise. Would even microbes shield their eyes? What country, friends, is this? You're out, you're clapping. Change of emphasis, mid-May. Not stay at home, but stay alert. And mate, there's one fine day you're very much alert to this. Memo. Sun is shining, team. How very hard we work. Let's say we score some wine and cheese today. BYOB from 6 p.m. This won't be known until the count is triple that, which won't be long. For in a few weeks everyone is down the pub or eating out to help out. Help out what? Somehow nobody gives the scientists you're following a hint of this. More dead than in the Blitz by now, and 2 more lockdowns far too late to go. So went your chance to shine. 2 years late, they found a line you crossed. Let's ditch the numbers, mate. My bad. Let's ditch the numbers now and let it be. Pull up a chair, old boy. I never had to bear the load you did. Didn't ask to, though, I might point out. You see that star? Our Overlook Hotel has 5. Can't wait for waiters to arrive. But if they don't, I'll find the bar and help us both to drinks we like. It's lovely here. The valley falls away forever. Far off hills are green, are fawn, are gold. The light is what I say, world writers, see. My memo's almost done, World King. Great on the vaccine, that's a thing, a while at least. But PPE, enough. We all have mates. So cheers, Yekida, and down the hatch. Anger hath a privilege, a great man said. In fact, Shakespeare. So put that in your book on him. You've time to write it now, one hopes. We clink our glasses, watch the slopes turn misty as the dusk rolls in, and still you're pumped and making plans. I guess I'll have to be afraid for both of us, World King, old mate, when down the darkened valley sounds of loss and dread and doleful tongues are closing in the whole night long like Birnam Wood. Then likewise strong for both of us when no one comes.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Glyn, for that brilliant reading, and to the brilliant Sophie Scott, who those numbers, which are absolutely accurate as the death toll rose, and that poem stands in memory of over 200,000 people in memoriam. Many of the poems in the book tackle things that are hard to write about, hard to talk about, feel urgent. We at Live Canon are desperately trying to spread the word. It's worth me saying at this moment, in a slightly, I suppose, David and Goliath way, that we're a tiny publishing house, as many of you know. We have no regular funding at all and no full-time staff, and we certainly don't have a marketing department. What we do have is a lot of passion and belief that really important work needs to be out there and in the hands of readers. So we've got this book out, and now we have to get it out to people and get people reading it. And thank you very much to everybody who bought a copy when you signed up for the event tonight, or have gone on to our website to buy a copy. Please, if you can, keep spreading the word, keep sending people the link to our website to buy the book, gift it to people, give it to people. If you think people might review it, if you think they might shout about it, if they've got a platform, give them the book and ask them to shout about it, because we have no power but the power of word of mouth. And the power of words are strong, right? We all know that, but that is what we are relying on to spread this book. It's starting. People are starting to take notice, and people are starting to read it, and people are starting to talk about it. But we don't have any machinery in place other than passion and energy. And we published this book because we felt it needed to be out, and it couldn't wait a year, it couldn't wait 2 years. It's speaking to this moment. When we held the event at the Bedford, somebody who might be on this call tonight, very brilliant woman called Robin Norton-Hale, said to me that if I told her she was coming to an evening of poems about Grenfell, about the PPE disaster, about the evacuation of Afghanistan, she would have thought that would have been a really depressing night out. But actually, gathering together to listen to the poems felt like an incredibly positive act. It felt full of a will to change. It felt full of a radical joy and a commitment to challenging the facts of the world as they currently are, and to imagining alternative ways forward. As such, therefore, this book to me is a joyful book, because it's a book that dissents, and it's a book of progress, and it's a book that actually stands up and is prepared to be counted and prepared to point the finger. I don't find anything depressing about it. I feel that actually every time we gather people together like tonight, whether we gather on Zoom or we gather in person, every time anything from this book is read, anytime anything from it's performed, every time two people talk about it over a coffee, that is a really positive thing to me in terms of actually how our art form can stand up and be counted in this moment, and actually what our art form can do in terms of speaking truth to power, quite simply, and using language to rather than using language to obscure, or using language to lie, or using language to confuse. It's using language to state the obvious and state it loudly and truthfully. All of which is a long-winded way of saying, please buy the book, please share the book, please buy 8 copies and give them to everyone you know, and please leave copies on the tube, donate copies to libraries. If you work in an institution, make sure they've got copies in the library, and let's go forth and spread it. Couple of other tiny things before we toast it. I have 3 Live Canon parish notices, and then we're going to get treated to another big poem from Glyn to end off our night. The first is that Glyn is about to have a fantastic production of The Flying Dutchman in a collaboration with Opera Up Close. And if you'd like to go and see that and what Glyn has done with that text, which is really extraordinary and progressive and exciting, then look on Opera Up Close's website, and coming soon to a seaport near you. It's touring around the UK. The second thing to say is that the other thing that Live Canon have recently published is some work by incredible Ukrainian women. I don't know about you, but until I did a poll the other day at an event where I asked everybody in the audience, bunch of people, probably quite like this audience today. I said, right, who's read a Russian novel? Everybody stuck their hands up. Everybody's read something at some point, a Russian novel in translation. I said, who's seen a Russian play? Everyone's seen some Chekhov, all the hands went up. I said, okay, who's read a Ukrainian novel? Nobody. Who's read a Ukrainian play? nobody. So one of the other missions that Live Canon is currently on is to publish some work, Ukrainian work, because let's face it, the invasion of Ukraine isn't just territorial or geographical, it's also about suppressing a culture, and we can stand up to that by amplifying that culture. So we have 2 books out by Ukrainian women, one of whom is a contemporary writer, Nina Shifship Murray, who is a American Ukrainian writer, and the other of which is Lesia Ukrainka, who was writing 100 years ago and was a pioneering feminist, extraordinary pioneering writer, writing at the beginning of the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century. So if you look on our website, you will find these 2 books, both by incredible Ukrainian women, both in English. The Lesia Ukrainka is your first opportunity really to read a selection of her poetry, plays and prose translated into English. And the third parish notice is just a tiny one, which is to say that thinking about the next generation of poets, the deadline for the Live Canon Children's Poetry Competition is on Friday. So if there are small people in your life who write, whether they be your children, your students, your pupils, your grandchildren, your godchildren, your neighbor, or please encourage them to enter. The details are on our website, but the deadline is Friday. And every year we publish a book of 100 poems by young people aged 5 to 18, and it is always incredibly inspiring, and quite frankly they are often well ahead of the curve in terms of writing about the things that really matter. It's always extraordinary to see what dominates the work sent to us by young people, but it is always inspiring. So there's 3 things for you there. Now we are going to raise our glasses to this book, and then we're going to ask Lynn to read a final poem. And I think we've got the choice between a sort of averagely length poem and a really quite long but completely blisteringly brilliant poem that featured in the TLS over Christmas. And I think I'm going to lead the charge for the long one, because I think I could sit and listen to Glyn read all night. And I'm getting some thumbs up on this. But we were umming and ahhing about this, but one of the poems in this book is called Wreck. And some of you might have read it because the TLS devoted a complete double broadsheet page to it in the Christmas edition of the TLS, which hats off to them and the bravery of doing that. But we haven't actually had an opportunity to hear Glyn read it yet. And I think tonight should be the night. Glyn, are you up for that? I'm getting a nod, a tentative nod.
I have never read this poem before. I read it with Sophie and one of the other actors when we did it on my birthday, and I don't think it's. I don't want to be sentimental, but I've never read it because I can't get through it. So I'll do my best. But like Yeats says in Lapis Lazuli, the actors in plays do not break up their lines to weep. So I'm not going to break up my lines to weep.
Well, before you start, I'm going to ask everybody in the room to make sure that they've got a glass in hand or a drink in hand. The title of this book, The Big Calls, is based on the quote of the current administration that they got the big calls right. And on the back of the book, it says, "We got the big calls right." And then Glyn asks, "Did you?" And that is the question we are all asking tonight, right? So I'd like you to raise your glass to the big calls.
Thank you.
And I'd like to invite Glyn to read us this extraordinary poem. And I know you've never managed to get to the end of it, but I can't imagine a more warm, supportive and up for it audience than you have tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And we will be with you through every line from the first to the last. Here we go.
Thank you, Helen, which somehow has to pathetically stand in for all the thank yous I owe you. And the list of the things you do would take us to 9 o'clock. So people know, people will always know and continue to know. But the one thing Helen hasn't said, which is because she's discreet and she wouldn't have done it without checking with me first, and I appreciate she didn't, but I'm going to, just to give you the full story. This poem, which has my heart and soul, and as you say, my anger, was turned down by my mainstream publisher, and who would have published it in a year and a half, and turned down without explanation. So I don't know where that fits in the story, but I do know that Helen did this in 6 weeks. All right. This poem is based on Hopkins' The Wreck of the Deutschland. The central events happened in the English Channel on the night of the 23rd of November, 2021. The narrative is based chiefly on accounts from the camp at Grand Centre near Dunkirk in northern France, and from the two survivors of the disaster. The dormitory scenes are my invention. So there are two things going on. There's the account from Dunkirk, the camp, and there's an account from an English dorm in a sort of a timeless English dorm, as they are in a boys' school. Rec. Thou mastering me, who? I'm all alone. There's no one there. For now I'll be alone with Hopkins, one alone with hope, and dwelling on a wreck along the coast of England. I've my own, and my own England too. I'll take my form from his, the rest is English history. First a sight there'll never be, her gaze, enthralled by coloured changing light, in a familiar place, my street in London, late November, last November, Christmas treat, a young girl's face, a girl I know was never here, is lost for good. I picture blissful by the fairy lights of Islington. Her face shines pink, then green, then yellow, soon it isn't there, and never was, and mine is staring back, or looking back, I know, with this, or with this nothing to be done, but this, I'm where she wished to go. Least I can do is tell her where the place has gone. Her name is Leaf. It's not her real name. It's what her real name means. I'll give her family the same. Pathright, her mother, scolding her with cries for dawdling by that window in a dream. Her brother Diamond rubs his eyes and catches mine. His disbelief, my disbelief, for no one's there. Again, that's all I've got. This Christmas crinkling in the air is pretty much my lot for wonder on the earth. But there they are, Leaf and her mother, Diamond showing them what? Things on his phone, a tiny star, to light 3 beaming faces in a sea of trash somewhere. Where? Dunkirk. A camp out to the west, nobody wanted, and it's cold and dark, save for the fires. The coast nearby, the sea all afternoon's been calm, the winter light is weakening. The least thing I can do is picture them and tell the picture who we are, who in the dark, at sea tonight, this very night will say, they're not our waters, just sit tight, and they'll send somebody. Or words to that effect. That one effect. 60 years, and I will have my say on England, fond and fooled and wrecked, and sinking with 3 cheers in the dissolving light. Dunkirk, the kind of thing you'd call a dorm, in the kind of school I have in mind. Trafalgar, Agincourt, Dunkirk. The glory in excelsis, light in darkness, heroes stumbling to the shore, their England. Any year you like, the schoolboys, in the kind of school I have in mind, dream of a world long gone in the moonlit dawn. I've known them young, I've known them old. You know the voice. Keep calm. They wait for the master's steps to clock and go past twice more and be gone. They're a 4th form. Surnames start with M, N, O. Why not? You know them old. You know them man and child. You know the form. A rich boy, Melivere, will be the first to tell the dorm to breathe. The coast is clear. And he does. And so they breathe. The master's gone. Then Melivere intones, there's no one here. Now what the devil's to be done? They mouth the words, they squeeze and wriggle to be warm. Melivere just sits and peers around for shit to say, and likes it here. Morm will get £1 if anyone says one of 7 things forbidden on a whim today. Mills found your diary, he was hunting, sings a song of what I'm going to do with that, my dear. Myram shines his torch below the sheets, peeping at his homework lines, shuts his eyes, repeats, kiss my hand to the dappled with damson west. Kiss my hole, burps Noble, as he greets his cake that came today. Still dressed, there's Nan, who talks in military call signs. They're there because they're there, to coin a phrase. And England is as England was, those were the bloody days. There, nobody's there to say, and some will sink and some will swim, nobody says, or says the word is mum, the word wept under blankets in a world of loss. No one speaks to Opie in his bit, his narrow bed that croaks and creaks, all night he coils in it, his breath in pieces. When a silence comes, they hold their own to hear him. Breaking it, they piss themselves and wiggle thumbs and shine a torch and mime the tears on cheeks. I've known them old, I've known them young. The shittest stuff they do to him's not far from what I've done. From the dusty corner, from the empty bed, I try to meet his eye, but we're long gone. Lily and beast of the waste wood. Banter, Opes, I wink in the darkness. Only a game. Dunkirk. Again! Leaf pleads in the wilderness to her brother Diamond on his phone. He's trying to find her this cool Christmas scene again with a shop display and the coloured lights on a London street. It's bliss to her. He says, we're on our way tonight, top secret, promise, they came back, those men. Diamond speaks only what Leaf hopes to hear. He said the same for weeks. He said in their muddy steps as they trudge back to the fires on their patch of trash and munch their crisps between the rubbish tips and sagging tents. Again! No, hush, he says. Leaf pouts or grins by how she rubs her cheeks. Dunkirk, twilight. Soon, says Diamond, soon. Darkness in the woods, but light across the sea. Full moon, Leaf sings. Not even close, sniffs Diamond. Half, 3/4. But you said this afternoon if it's calm tonight, it's a pond, cries Leaf. An English pond. And she walks her fingers over it. Shh. He does the same. They play, they're there. They meet the Queen there, not her real name. About where James Bond Street meets Quality Street. The lights again, she cries. But he can't. Battery, sis. She stamps her feet to keep them warm and rubs her eyes and whispers out to sea. He hears her. Like my dream. It isn't that, Leaf. It's not the news, or is the news again, but not for you again, or yours. Clandestine channel threat you were. They call the new commander that. They are fighting wars. Make mercy in us out of all. Make mercy in us all, or Christ I don't know what. That Tuesday sailed, English outward bound, from Dunkirk, Leaf, desire, strong-willed, praiseworthy, pathright, flower found, beloved, helper, rose moon, heaven sent, fire of honour, mystery, diamond, friend. Not real names, but what they meant. And 20 more in a paddling pool that could hold. Couldn't hold. I, dweller in a glen, am writing with my writing eye. I didn't see it. One Muhammad did, his real name to this day. But I make a small voice cry, the lights again, as their plastic raft gets flopped away onto the sea forever, out to the freezing sky, off Dunkirk. The fourth form turn and sleep, except for Myram's torchlit homework squiggling in the deep. Where was a place? He's trying to learn Hopkins for double English. He's asleep, the filament pink. Streetlights burn, gaslights burn, and candles burn in the age-old dark. We're here because we're here, to coin a phrase. In England now, and as it was, these days, these boys' heydays. Theirs never seem to end, as heydays must, but go on grinding history to haze of light and right and Lord. The dust I wipe and try to see my way through now, because that winter's night would find them all in post, in power, like Lord and right and light, blind shining from one coast to another. Out there somewhere, the ship sails. Well, Leaf calls it a ship. Diamond says, most ships you call a she. Leaf squeals, she sails. And Uncle yells, the cliffs are painted white. All turn to sea. Clandestine channel threat they were, but the horizon's grey, nothing to see there yet. It's in his mind's eye like it's all in mine. But someone saw it all and can't forget, so nor shall I. I mark the time, my 60 years, my land, I'll have my fucking say. Melivere, hell. If you know English sound, you know the lounging fellow well. He's played on his home ground since he was born, and Morm in the next bed paid his dues to play there too, till he found to his amusement what he said went. Soon at the chime of the division bell, his was the call that mattered. Mills shone too, shone light where necessary. All we do for you, was his nudge to readers every day for years. And Noble ate his cake as they egged him to, got so fat his fat shed tears. While Nairn stood sharp as always, stock still by a wall. There he is. There they all are for good, ruling the waves that rise and plunge as the cries to God go out again, a dot on an unwatched screen, their craft, while in the clear skies overhead, the wing lights wink in red and green, the dreamways of the deeply sleeping rest of us. Diamond makes a quarrel on the boat sound fun to Leaf. His right arm aches with clutching her. Some vote to turn around and some to hold their course, but the pilot says he's kidding, there's no vote, and the uncle says he sees the shore, but he doesn't look to see this time, and no one looks. Rosemoon texts her husband, heaven sent his fiancée. The air pump jerks and rattles and is silent. Praiseworthy, as his name means still, remembers things like fire of honour, his name meant, begging his neighbours, call the numbers. Praiseworthy trod the water 9 hours off Dunkirk. Now one hand bails the sea, and one hand holds the hand beside. The engine fails. The mother Pathright scolds her Diamond, always messing with his phone. He's calling England's sailors. Save our souls is what it stands for, little one. The uncle teaches Leaf. Oh, the big ship sails on the alley-alley-o. No one will hear your song. I, dweller in a valley, promise you, my dear, where you are sailing to, I have come from, and I'm trying to understand, as a last prayer howls from Pathright, where we've gone, who you believed would help you. Down the gleaming alley, all green and red, Leaf runs to the magic window in my mind's eye. Our treat, our dead. Her cheeks go pink, go yellow. Thou mastering me, Myram, English Don, murmurs after class to his lawn shadow on the cricket field when day is done. I feel thy finger and find thee, Lord. Praiseworthy said. All night till dawn they could take it. By the lights they let go, one by one, all gone, all went out in my sight. And English said French water there, French said English water, no one came, not right. Not one more photograph, please God. No, this was the family, oh, and they're their little one.
Let's all unmute so we can applaud. Thank you so much, Glyn. Thank you for reading all of that, and thank you to everybody for taking time out of your mad and busy week to listen. It matters, gathering to listen to good words, gathering to listen to writing that is brave, writing that refuses to let things go unnoticed, unmentioned, or unpassed, or unspoken of. And that means us gathering to listen, and it means us reading, and it means us sharing. But it's been absolutely extraordinary to get to do that this evening. There's a great old mess of links coming up in the chat of all the things I've mentioned. The link to ordering the book. Do feel free to order copies to be sent directly to your, MP. Glyn's opera, the Ukrainian poets, the children's competition, and how to find us on social media if you're shouting about the book. With everyone's permission in the room, I can stick those in email as well to everybody when we get off the Zoom call. A few people are nodding at me, so I'll send. I normally don't do that because it's after you've been on a Zoom, you don't necessarily want to be bombarded by email. But tonight I'm bombarding because this matters. And so thank you very, very much for joining us at what is the beginning. In some ways, it's the end of a mad period of getting the book out and getting it there. And I really hope, I think we've nailed it. But, if there is a typo anywhere, then I apologize for, I don't think I've ever seen anything typeset or proofed or turned around quite so quickly. The people who gave blurbs for the book, Joel Taylor, Caroline Duffy, Caroline Bird, did so within 24 hours of reading it. They operated at the same pace that we were all going at. It's been extraordinary to get to sort of attempt to steer this ship out. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spreading the word. Thank you for caring and for your kindness in helping steward this book out into the world. But most of all, an enormous and massive thank you to Glyn for writing something that I'm so proud to have any part of. It's a brilliant book. Huge congratulations from everybody on this Zoom call, and I know that we're all going to be talking about it for a long time to come. So let's have one final massive, enormous round of applause. And thank you for being with us. Please keep in touch, and we'll see you either in person or on Zoom again very soon. Good night.